Debut is a word of French origin. It means the first time, the beginning, the premiere. In different languages and cultures, it can refer to stepping onto a stage for the first time. But in football, it means only one thing: a player's first game with a new team. Sure, what truly matters is how you finish, but never underestimate the power of a strong start, especially when there are big expectations. Today on Balllogue, we dive into debut performances that went straight into the history books. Players who pulled a rabbit out of the hat, who made a statement, who lifted a trophy on day one, who scored a last-minute winner. These are the debut matches we still talk about. Maybe this is your debut too, your very first match with us. If it feels like a good start, why not join our team? Hit that sub. It helps more than you think. In recent years, no player has burst onto the scene quite like Erling Haaland. A blonde giant from seemingly nowhere, Haaland entered our lives in late 2019 and shook European football to its core. With Salzburg, he scored 8 goals in the Champions League group stage. That was all it took. Europe's elite came knocking. Borussia Dortmund didn't wait for the season to end. As soon as the January window opened, they got his signature. Sure, he had scored for fun in Austria, and maybe the Champions League run was a lucky streak. But the real question was, how long would it take to prove himself in the Bundesliga? Answer: 20 minutes. Haaland started on the bench in Dortmund's away match against Augsburg. The team was struggling, down 3-1. In the 56th minute, he came on for Łukasz Piszczek. 3 minutes later, goal. A run from the left channel, a left-footed strike across the keeper into the far corner, a perfect introduction. For most players, that would be enough. A dream debut. But Haaland smelled blood. By the 70th minute, another. By the 79th, hat-trick. 3 goals in 20 minutes. He didn't just score, he changed the game. Dortmund came back to win 5-3, and Erling Haaland announced himself to Germany the only way he knew how, by tearing through it. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He played until the age of 40, and everywhere he went, he ruled. He wasn't just a footballer, he was a presence, a performance, a persona, always the main character, always the king of the stage. When he suffered a brutal knee injury at Manchester United, many thought it was the end. He was 35, too old, too broken, too late. But Zlatan returned and played for 5 more years. So where would he go next? The answer came in the form of a headline, literally. When he signed for LA Galaxy, he rented out a full-page ad in the LA Times, just to say, "Dear Los Angeles, you're welcome." Some saw arrogance, others saw a warning, because days later, it was time. His debut match, LA Galaxy vs LAFC, the first ever Los Angeles derby. Now, let's be honest, this wasn't some age-old rivalry. This was their very first meeting. Zlatan started on the bench. He hadn't even trained properly. The coach planned to give him just 20 minutes. When he came on, Galaxy were losing, 3-2. And then, pure Zlatan. A loose ball bounced near midfield. He spotted the keeper off his line. No hesitation, one bounce, one half volley, 35 meters out. No matter which team they supported, everyone in the stadium rose to their feet. The goal was that good, that outrageous, that Zlatan. And as the crowd lost its mind, the American commentator captured the moment perfectly.
LAFC have just been Zlatan.
But he wasn't done. In stoppage time, 91st minute, he rose for a header. Game over. 19 minutes, 2 goals. And just like that, Zlatan didn't just join the LA derby, he created it. Enjoying it already? A single tap on the like button is the only way to let us, and the algorithm, know we're on the right track. 995 official matches, 69 goals, 199 assists. And no, we're not talking about a winger or a central midfielder. This is the resume of a right-back, Dani Alves. While his post-retirement headlines haven't always been flattering, make no mistake, Dani Alves was one of the greatest to ever play the game. Throughout his career, he wore the shirts of Sevilla, Barcelona, Juventus, and PSG. Clubs that didn't just want to compete, they wanted to win. And with Alves, they did. At Sevilla alone, he collected 4 trophies, 2 UEFA Cups, a Copa del Rey, and a Spanish Super Cup. Then came Barcelona, 8 seasons, countless titles. He was part of the most dominant club side in modern history. At Juventus, he stayed only 1 year, but even then, he added 2 more trophies. By the time he signed for Paris Saint-Germain in the summer of 2017, Alves had already won 37 major trophies, more than any footballer in history at that time. Yes, eventually, his close friend Leo would pass him in that race, but for a moment, Dani stood alone at the top. His PSG debut came in the Trophée des Champions, the French Super Cup, a clash between the Ligue 1 champions and the French Cup winners. PSG versus Monaco, a chance for yet another medal. Things didn't start well. Monaco scored first, but in the 51st minute, PSG won a free kick, and France met Dani Alves' right foot. A rocket, top corner. 12 minutes later, he delivered a perfect cross for Rabiot's header, 2-1. PSG lifted the trophy. Dani was named Man of the Match, and as the final whistle blew, he added the 38th medal to his glittering collection. One of the greatest winning machines the sport has ever seen, from right back. Mario Balotelli, football's eternal wild child, a player of immense talent who might have achieved so much more if only he could stay focused, or simply stay put. Throughout his career, Balotelli moved clubs 11 times, across 9 different teams, and not once did he stay longer than 2.5 years. The world first met him wearing an Inter Milan shirt, but when a photo surfaced of Mario in an AC Milan jersey, the Inter faithful turned on him. It got worse. In one match, under a storm of boos, Balotelli took off his shirt and threw it to the ground. That was it. Club legend Marco Materazzi didn't hold back. The two clashed, and Mario's time at Inter was over, but Inter would never sell him directly to their fiercest rivals. So, in the summer of 2010, Balotelli joined Manchester City. What followed was chaos. There were goals, there were fireworks, literally. And there was Roberto Mancini, slowly losing his mind. But even in all that madness, Mario had his moment. In the final game of the season against QPR, he delivered that assist to Sergio Aguero. City won the title. Balotelli won his first and only league championship. Still, the love story didn't last. By January 2013, City had had enough. Balotelli was on his way out, headed back to Italy, to the club he called his favourite. February 3rd, his debut, wearing the number 45, the opponent Udinese. In the 25th minute, he opened the scoring, his signature non-celebration in full display. But the game wasn't over. Udinese equalised. 90 minutes passed, 1-1, and then injury time, minute 93. Milan won a penalty. Balotelli stepped up. This was it. The script was perfect. Back in Italy, back in his element. A chance to win it at the death. He scored, cool as ever. No fist pumps, no knee slides, just open arms, receiving quiet congratulations. Later, he explained it in true Mario fashion. Why should I celebrate scoring a goal? I'm just doing my job. When the postman delivers your mail, does he celebrate? Now, let's talk about a player who really did choose money. Oscar. His career could have gone down a completely different path. Back in 2011, playing for Internacional, he scored a hat-trick in the Under-20 World Cup final against Portugal, carrying Brazil to the title and putting his name on the global stage. They called him the next Kaká. Tottenham wanted him. So did Milan. Even Barcelona showed interest, but Oscar signed for Chelsea. £25 million. His debut? Not just any debut, it was what they call a full debut. Your first time in the starting 11. And in Oscar's case, it was also his very first Champions League appearance. Stamford Bridge, Chelsea versus Juventus. The Brazilian, just 21 years old, started on the left wing. Across from him, Gianluigi Buffon in goal, Leonardo Bonucci, Andrea Barzagli and Giorgio Chiellini at the back. Legends. 31st minute, Oscar strikes. A long-range shot deflects off a defender and wrong-foots Buffon. Fortune favoured him. But what he did 2 minutes later, that was pure genius. With his back to goal at the edge of the box, he took one touch, just one, enough to spin around Bonucci and open up a shooting angle. Then, boom, a curling strike with his right foot that left even Buffon, one of the greatest keepers of all time, frozen. Stamford Bridge erupted. The Frank Lampard era was coming to an end. But Oscar, he looked like the future. And for a while he was. 4 strong seasons in London, 2 Premier League titles, 1 Europa League. At 26, he was entering his prime. He had the talent to be one of the greats. And then he left. China, a move that shocked the football world. Most thought it was a short-term payday, a pit stop. But Oscar never came back. 8 years passed. Even Buffon retired. And Oscar, he had still been in the Chinese Super League until last January. In May of 2021, Sergio Aguero played in his first and only Champions League final. He lost. As the final whistle blew against Chelsea, he couldn't hold back the tears. Just a few months later, he stood before cameras again, this time not as a footballer, but as a man forced to retire after being diagnosed with a heart condition. Once again, he broke down in tears. A year passed, and in the chaos of Argentina's World Cup celebrations, there he was, wearing the jersey, lifting the trophy, laughing with his teammates. It was a beautiful sight, but also a reminder. Aguero didn't retire on his own terms. He didn't want to stop, but his body made the decision for him. If you only caught the final chapters of his story, you might have thought he was just another nearly man. You'd be wrong, because Kun was a born competitor. When he lifted the Europa League with Atletico Madrid, he was just 22, and one of the most sought-after forwards in world football. He could have gone anywhere, but in the summer of 2011, he shocked many by choosing Manchester City, a club still finding its identity, a club many thought was more money than meaning. But Kun wasn't chasing paychecks. He was there to build something, to bring a winning culture to a club still learning how to win. On the opening day of the Premier League season, City hosted Swansea at the Etihad. Aguero started on the bench. With 30 minutes left, he replaced Nigel de Jong, and in just half an hour, he left a mark the league would never forget. 68th minute, his first Premier League goal. 3 minutes later, a clever assist to David Silva. 90th minute, a stunning strike from outside the box. He didn't just introduce himself, he announced himself. You know how they say it's not how you start, but how you finish? Well, this is how Aguero started. As for how he finished, let's just say no one forgets 2012. Sergio was the man who painted Manchester sky blue. Three years had passed since Ruud van Nistelrooy's epic debut. Since then, Manchester United had entered a new phase. David Beckham was gone, off to Real Madrid. In his place came the likes of Rio Ferdinand, Louis Saha, and a teenage Cristiano Ronaldo. And now, it was time to add the final piece, the next great hope of English football, Wayne Rooney. When Rooney made his Premier League debut with Everton, he was just 16 years and 9 months old. By the time he earned his first senior England cap, he was 17 and 3 months. He looked older, played stronger, and carried the swagger of a veteran in a teenager's frame. The entire nation was watching, and it was Manchester United who won the race. Just after turning 18, Rooney was signed on transfer deadline day for a record-breaking fee of £30 million. Unheard of for someone his age, but there was a delay. He arrived with a minor injury and had to wait for his first appearance. That day came not in the Premier League, but under the lights of Europe. Champions League, Match Day 2. The opponent, Fenerbahce. That night in Manchester belonged to Rooney. He started the match. 18th minute, left foot, goal. 29th, right foot, goal. 53rd, free kick, top corner. A perfect hat-trick without even stepping into the penalty box. United 6, Fenerbahce 2. And just to cap it off, he provided the assist for the final goal. The very next day, British newspapers went wild, and one headline summed it all up. £30 million. Is that all? It was the Galactico era, a time when Real Madrid didn't just sign stars, they signed constellations. Look to your left, Zidane. Look to your right, Figo. Up front, Raul. At left back, the legendary Roberto Carlos. Between the posts, a young Iker Casillas. Even Guti was coming off the bench in this team. And just 5 months earlier, they had conquered Europe, thanks to a volley from Zidane so majestic it still echoes through history. And yet, that summer, something even bigger happened. Something that stole the headlines, even from Zizou's left foot. A man with fragile knees, buck teeth, and a fading career who had barely touched a football in 3 of the past 4 seasons, suddenly rose from the ashes. The 2002 World Cup belonged to one man, and one man only. Ronaldo, the phenomenon. He lit up the tournament like a wildfire, and after what the world had seen in South Korea and Japan, there was no doubt left. He was the biggest star in football. Real Madrid had to have him. After long, drawn-out negotiations with Inter, the deal was sealed on the final day of the transfer window. August 31st, 2002, Ronaldo was unveiled in white. 6 days later, his debut, at home, against Alaves. He started on the bench, but in the 63rd minute, the Bernabeu held its breath. The phenomenon was coming on. 1 minute later, a cross from the left, chest control, volley. Hola Madrid, hola Santiago Bernabeu. I am the brightest star in the galaxy. The stadium erupted, and just when you thought it couldn't get better, he scored again in the 78th. He ran to the crowd, finger-wagging, trademark celebration on full display. Ronaldo had arrived. And by the end of that year, he'd lift his second Ballon d'Or. The king was back. At the turn of the millennium, Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United was, without a doubt, one of the strongest teams in Europe. Fergie had a gift. Throughout his quarter-century reign at Old Trafford, he constantly evolved. He kept pace with the game, adapted to its changes, and reshaped United accordingly. For years, his go-to formation had been the classic 4-4-2, but by the early 2000s, he was pondering a shift, a lone striker system. The problem? The iconic duo of Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole. Their chemistry was too good to break. You couldn't simply bench one and expect the same magic. What he needed was a new kind of striker, and he had one in mind, Ruud van Nistelrooy, a Dutch goal machine who had just topped the Eredivisie scoring charts twice with PSV Eindhoven. But fate had other plans. In early 2000, during a training session, Van Nistelrooy tore his ACL. The move was shelved. A year passed, and as the season neared its end, Ruud was back, fit, hungry, and scoring again. United didn't wait. That summer, in 2001, they signed him for £19 million. And then came the moment, the opening day of the Premier League season, Fulham at Old Trafford. Finally, the Dutchman was ready to meet the theatre of dreams, but doubts hung in the air. After all, he had just returned from a major injury. And Fulham? They weren't there to play along. A striker named Louis Saha, who would later wear the red of United himself, scored twice in the first half. Fulham led 2-1 at the break. But this was Ruud's night. Just minutes into the second half, he silenced the sceptics. First his left foot, then his right. 2 goals in 2 minutes. Manchester United 3, Fulham 2. And for the first time, the Old Trafford faithful rose as one and echoed a chant that would shake the stands for years to come. We begin with an international debut, nearly 30 years ago. France was hosting the Czech Republic in a friendly match at the Chaban-Delmas Stadium, right in the heart of Bordeaux, a city more known for its wines than its football. At the time, Les Bleus had only one major trophy to their name, the European Championship they won back in '84. Since then, they had missed back-to-back World Cups, 1990 and '94. This friendly came just a month after USA '94 ended. The French starting 11 included experienced names like Laurent Blanc, Marcel Desailly, and Eric Cantona. Alongside them, promising youngsters such as Lilian Thuram and Christophe Dugarry. But things didn't go to plan. France found themselves 2 goals down before halftime. Not exactly an ideal start to their preparations for Euro '96. And yet, on the bench sat a young man born in Marseille to Algerian parents with a full head of hair and something even fuller inside, vision. With 27 minutes left on the clock, the 22-year-old Bordeaux native stepped onto the pitch. Few knew his name, fewer expected what was to come. He looked like a centre-back, tall, lean, long-legged, built to defend. But when he touched the ball, something shifted. At minute 85, he breezed past 2 Czech players, then curled the ball into the top corner from 25 metres out with his so-called weaker foot. Not that Zidane had a weak foot to begin with. 2 minutes later, 87 on the clock, he rose for a header, a genius header, one that levelled the match. That warm summer evening in '94 marked Zinedine Zidane's debut in the French national team. 12 years later, on another summer night, he'd wear that same jersey for the very last time. And once again, with a headbutt, he would change history. Some players step onto the pitch, some take over the stage, but only a few become the stage. These weren't just debuts, they were statements. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story is already being written.